Brad never envisioned himself working 60-hour weeks. But there he was, caught in a relentless grind of overtime at the electrical company. For the past year, he had dedicated himself to saving for a future with Gina, his fiancée. Every extra shift, every weekend job was another step toward a life they had been planning together. His friends joked that they had forgotten what daylight looked like, and while he appreciated their humor, they weren't entirely wrong. One day, while rewiring a kitchen for an elderly client, he felt his phone buzz in his pocket. It was Gina again. He hesitated, almost ignoring the notifications, but during a much-needed water break, he decided to check. The message read, "Did you think about Amy's wedding?" Instantly, he felt a familiar knot forming in his stomach. He and Gina had been together for 3 years, and by now, he could read between the lines of her texts. This wasn't just a question. It was an ultimatum wrapped in concern. Their relationship had always felt solid. They had met at a barbecue hosted by his friend Dave, and over the years had built a life together. Or at least were trying to. Every dollar he earned went into their wedding savings account, and the thought of spending money on someone else's wedding was infuriating. He quickly typed back, "We talked about this. We can't afford it right now," before shoving his phone back into his pocket and climbing back up the ladder, determined to finish the job. After a long, exhausting day, he returned home to find Gina waiting on the couch. She was still in her nursing scrubs, looking weary but hopeful. "Hey," she greeted him, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. They shared a brief conversation about their days, but the tension was palpable, hovering in the air like a storm cloud. Finally, she confronted him directly, asking about Amy's wedding. Gina's voice was firm as she expressed how important it was to her. Brad felt the frustration boiling up inside him. "I'm working my ass off for us, Gina. I'm not throwing away $6,000 on a wedding that isn't ours." His voice rose, not meaning to shout, but the weight of his exhaustion and stress spilled out. Gina pulled away, her expression turning from frustration to hurt, and that silence was worse than any argument. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Brad stared at the ceiling, grappling with a nagging feeling that he was missing something essential. Why was Gina so adamant about attending Amy's wedding? They had their own wedding to plan, and every penny mattered. He turned to her, watching her peaceful face, and realized he loved her deeply. Yet the thought of their future together felt overshadowed by this conflict. Meanwhile, Gina was feeling the weight of their situation too. She watched Brad leave for work the next morning, a mix of gratitude and frustration swirling inside her. He worked harder than anyone she knew, all for their future. But sometimes it felt like they were just going through the motions: work, save, pay bills, rinse and repeat. As she sipped her coffee, she checked her phone, seeing a flood of messages from Amy, filled with excitement about her upcoming wedding in Cancun. Her heart sank. She hadn't yet told Amy that she might not be able to make it. She wanted to go, not just for Amy, but for herself. A last adventure before stepping into the role of a devoted wife with all the responsibilities that came with it. The weight of their shared budget loomed large in her mind, meticulously crafted by Brad, with every cent accounted for. It felt suffocating at times, and she found herself wondering when she had started to feel like she needed permission for every little expense. At work, Amy confronted her about the situation. "Why are you letting him decide how to spend your money? You have your paycheck too," Amy pressed. Gina felt a sting at the truth of those words. When had she started to seek approval? She knew that Brad was careful with finances, but it had begun to feel like he was making all the decisions, leaving her to just nod along. As days turned into weeks, the tension continued to simmer. Brad was working long hours, and Gina was left feeling increasingly isolated. The argument continued to replay in her mind, and she wondered if it was time to assert herself. The thought of telling Brad that she needed to go to Amy's wedding, regardless of what he thought, crossed her mind, but fear held her back. What if he reacted poorly? One evening, after another exhausting day, she found herself back at Amy's place, discussing the wedding details. Amy urged her to take a stand for what she wanted. "If he really loves you, he'll support your decision," she insisted. The idea of making it non-negotiable lingered in Gina's mind, but it felt manipulative. Back home, the weight of their unresolved fight hung heavy in the air. Brad returned late, exhausted and ready to unwind. Gina sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through pictures of the resort where Amy's wedding would take place. The planner called today. "We need to pick a date for our wedding," he said, attempting to shift the conversation to something productive. But Gina had reached her breaking point. "What about what I want?" she burst out. "Don't I get a say in how we spend our money?" The tension exploded, with both of them shouting, their frustrations boiling over. Brad's voice rose, insisting that he was the one working tirelessly for their future. Gina countered that experiences mattered too. She didn't want to miss her best friend's wedding. In the heat of their argument, Gina finally laid it all on the table. "If you don't help me go to Amy's wedding, I don't see how we can move forward." Those words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Brad stared at her, disbelief etched across his face. "You're threatening our relationship over vacation?" "I'm not," she cried, but the damage was done. The ultimatum had been cast. Brad, feeling betrayed, pulled out his laptop and transferred money from their joint wedding fund to her personal account. "Use it for your trip. Clearly, it means more to you than our future." Gina felt the panic rise as he began packing a duffel bag, declaring he would stay at a friend's place. "You're breaking up with me over this?" she asked, incredulous. "We were supposed to get married." But Brad was unyielding, insisting that her priorities had shifted. As he walked out, Gina felt an overwhelming wave of regret wash over her. Meanwhile, Brad crashed at a friend's house, stewing over unanswered questions and the ultimatum that tore them apart. Gina realized she didn't want to be in a relationship where money dictated their happiness. But as she stood beside Amy, she couldn't shake the feeling of having sacrificed something precious. Brad had worked tirelessly for their future, and now she was left with a personal loan and the bitter taste of regret. Back in her new apartment, Gina faced the stark reality of her choices. She picked up extra shifts at work to make ends meet, all while grappling with the loneliness of her new life. The freedom she longed for had come at a steep price, one that felt increasingly unbearable. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had accused Brad of being controlling, but he had been trying to build a future while she was chasing fleeting moments.